going to share what I have come to know as the biggest, most important reasons why rewiring your brain deserves to be at the top of your priority list. Now, I grew up in a rural village in the northwest province of South Africa, and in my village, our king was most powerful. His word was final. We all knew that he is not to be questioned. And if you dared disobey him, you would be in trouble. We knew that as little girls, as we grew up. We understood that there was a hierarchy. If I had an issue, I speak to my mother, who would then speak to my father, who my father then would in turn speak to the elders, and if the elders deemed my issue worthy enough, they would speak to the king and take it to the king. Now that's the system of power and authority and interaction that I grew up with. That's what was wired into me as a leadership style, whether I was aware of it or not. Now that way of leading is often referred to in leadership circles as command and control. Now I learned how to lead that way, and that's how I went with my business into the corporate world. Now I wonder, amongst us here, how many of us have experienced this leadership style? I certainly have. And in every instance, it was an environment full of fear, loaded with fear, and just plain toxic. Now, the Neuro Leadership Institute, along with Anderson, shared two very important statistics that are relevant for us today. The one is that 9 out of 10 leaders who lead using this leadership style fail to lead their organization into change and growth. Now, this is significant, given that we are now into the 4th industrial revolution, and the need to adapt and change in order to survive is key. The second statistic that is relevant here is that this way of leading triggers two very important stress neurotransmitters. And those are cortisol and adrenaline. These neurotransmitters, when they occur at high levels in our bloodstreams, they grossly impact our performance. They diminish it. Our efficiency gets completely impacted in a way that disables us to be our best. Now, we also know, based on these findings, that when we operate under such high levels of cortisol and adrenaline, it affects our concentration. We can't concentrate. We forget things. Our memory is impaired. We get sick often. Our immune system gets impaired. And also, we develop high blood pressure because we are forever on alert. The threat response, we are ready to fight anytime. And therefore, we're not able to engage really in the workplace. So let's just let that sink in a little bit, guys. Just imagine the number of our colleagues who are walking the corridors and the floors of our organizations who are operating at a fraction of what they ordinarily would be. Just imagine that. Now, let me introduce to you at this point an executive of a top multinational company here in South Africa. His name is Bongani. Bongani, like me, grew up in a traditional home. His father was like my king, all powerful and never to be disobeyed, whether at home or at work. So Kgobati shares this with me when he started working with me. He says, you know, Kgobati, when I took over the leadership of my division, I continued to do what I saw my father do. I gave instructions. I didn't care what else was happening in your life or what you had to say. I just told you what to do, and you must just do and do it quickly, or else. Okay? He continues to say, but I was surprised why it is that the more I told them, the more they didn't seem to hear me. I used to walk around thinking, what a bunch of lazy buggers I have working for me. So, as a result of that, I decided to sit on their necks. I demanded daily reports. I was like, you're going to be here at 7 and deliver that report to me. Klar. So he continues and says, but things got worse. The ones who, my best employees, resigned. And the ones that were mediocre stayed, sulked, and lodged complaints against me. So things got worse. In the end, he says, I wasn't happy, and they were not happy. Now, in my work as a leadership trainer and a coach, I have met hundreds of Bonganis, both male and female, who are really trapped in this way of leading that was wired in them. Many times they were not even aware of it, of leadership that is not working for them anymore. Right? So thankfully, yeah, you will know, Bongani's story doesn't end here. What he then gets to know is that there's a different way of doing things. So he gets to know about the neuroscience, neuroskills, and neurosemantics programs that we run for high-performing leaders. And so he comes in, and we take him through a process that essentially had 4 key points. The first is spending time with him to get to understand what are his pain points. What does the change that he wants to see look like and sound like? So what's the picture of it? The second thing was to then work with him to facilitate a process for him to connect with some of his core beliefs about what is important. Now, we do that because that's a very critical stage, because our beliefs about what is important enable us to kick our blankets in the morning and be able to keep going even when the going gets tough. The third thing we did is that neuroskills training that we spoke about. Now, oftentimes when I do this, people say to me, how do you do this wiring of human beings? Do you sort of plug wires on them and then you sort of give them an electric charge and just like, right? So now fortunately, that's not what we do. So in this part, he actually gets to learn the actual skills of how do you think in a way that would create a state in you that enables you to speak and act in ways that would trigger conditions that are conducive for performance in somebody else's lives. He learns that you can systematically and deliberately trigger enabling neurotransmitters for performance, such as dopamine and oxytocin. He learned that if he triggered dopamine in his colleagues, he will get all the good stuff that he wants, such as goal-driven behavior, motivation to perform, concentration, and all those things that we want human beings to be able to feel in order to turbocharge their performance. So Bongani was quite excited by this. And he was even more excited when we got to tell him that actually dopamine has the same effect that we adults get from eating chocolate or even having sex. It has the same effect. It sort of makes you have a sense of deep pleasure in whatever it is that you're doing. So Bongani learned all of that, all the tricks of how it is that you actually communicate in order to create enabling states in other people? How do you get to trigger enabling neurotransmitters in their bodies so that they can actually do better and improve their performance? The fourth thing we did with that was to coach him so that all these new skills that we are learning, that he was learning, could then be embedded into his neurology. We do that because we know all of us have programs that have been running us, that are wired in us. They are hard stuck. And in order for us to replace them, rewire, there's a lot more work that's required to actually replace that and do a different job. So Bongani did that, and the results came very quickly. So in the first year of his work with us, he came one day springing into the session, and he says, "You're not going to believe it." And I'm like, "What?" He says, "It is 2:45, and my team has already achieved the annual targets." How crazy is that? I was like, well, you know, and his colleagues added that his new way of leading, which was more an empathic, more inclusive way of leading, had resulted in them doing more and putting more effort into their work. So as a result of that, they were delivering faster, better. Now, what does this mean for us? That's the story of Bongani. What does that mean for us as Africans or anybody listening to this? The first is that, oh, thank God, we can rewire our brains. We're not stuck, guys. So we can undo all other programs, ways of doing things, ways of thinking that we have that are no longer working for us. So isn't that a relief? When I learned that, I was just like, whew, thank God. Second is that we all need to go to what I call neuro skills training. Because we sent pilots to pilot school to go and learn the intricate system that is an aeroplane, to learn how to fly it and keep it in optimum flight so that it doesn't crash. We need to do the same for human beings. We now know enough. We have enough neuroscience. We know like we have never known before around how human beings best function. There is no excuse for us to be leading or creating states in human beings that are disabling them and making them being able to stop them from being the best they can be. Okay? Now, Bongani's results were so transformational for him. He walked into one of the sessions soon after that and sat across from me quite emotional. And he says, "Kgobati, please tell me why I did not learn this when I was 7 in primary school. Please tell me why my son is not currently learning this in school as we speak. If I knew what I know now about my mind-body emotion system, how to create this impact and this effect in my body and in other people's bodies, my life would have been very different right now. And I would have been much further than I am today." So I pose these questions back at us today. There is a real opportunity for us to wire this kind of thinking and doing early enough in our children and in our schools. I agree with Bongani, who, as a result of our work with him, sponsored a program at his son's school to teach what he has learned as an executive about mind and body emotion states and how to work himself to be the best he can be, to teach that to his age mates, to his son's age mates. He argues, as I do, that the skills of communicating effectively with you based on how your brain is structured and how mine is, the skills of enabling me to connect with my deep values and get me to keep my blankets in the morning and keep going for my goals. And the skills of being able to work through conflict, understanding just how we are designed and collaborate together. All those are skills that we all need from 6 or even earlier. So why do we wait until we are 40 to learn that? Now, with this way of leading, which is really basically saying we know how we are structured, what's the science of performance. If we lead based on how we are designed, we all win. Our parents, as parents, we win. As organizations, we win. In families, we win. We win in our relationships. It's win, 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 win everywhere. So, Maya Angelou, the very famous American poet, counsels us and says, do your best until you know better. But when you get to know better, do better. So that's my challenge to you and to me. Thank you.